Previously on Cineverm episode 30. I think that's right. Anthony thought Fear Street Part 1 was the worst piece of shit that he had ever seen since the last piece of shit he's seen. Cineverm. All right. Well, hello. Welcome to Cineverm episode 31. 32. Shit. So all right, just whatever. Fuck that shit. Episode 32. We're discussing Fear Street Part 2, 1978, directed and written by Lee Janik. Here's a quick synopsis. In 1978, two rival groups at Camp Nightwing must band together to solve a terrifying mystery when horrors from their not horrors from their town's history come alive. All right, these movies have already fucked me up, man.
No, I think I feel like that is going to be a running gag in these podcasts, is the different episode numbers.
All right. Well, so this is the second part of the 3-part series that could have been one part, in my opinion. This one's is kind of taking on the 70s, I guess, like camp horror theme, tackling
Friday
it.
the 13th.
Yeah,
type
I guess.
Shit.
Do you want to start? I think I started the last one.
I mean, I think we're going to be much on the same page for this movie, more than the first one. In general, just a huge drop off from the energy of the first movie.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that was missing that I liked about the first movie. Mm-hmm. Plus the aesthetics. I feel like they nailed the aesthetics in this movie, but they were boring. And the cinematography, just most of the scenes were just so dark and just boring dialogue of backstories and more backstory that I didn't care about. Just, it slowed down a lot, this movie. And so I just think a lot of the things that were really good about the first movie, they didn't have in this movie. And so it just felt like a big slump in the middle of this trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my general impression review of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, just like I said for the first film, the directing, I thought it was awful. The editing, the music, the song selections were just constant and rampant, like a disease. The acting, I thought, was bad. The writing was horrible. Especially with, like, now that we're going backwards in time, like, in my opinion, the writing just keeps getting worse. Like, the teenagers feel like not even like teenagers even more, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like how they speak, and then like one's all like what the sister of the main character, I guess, and she's all like preppy, and like it's just like the generic version of what you think a 70s preppy teenager would act like. I don't know. I wasn't born in the 70s. I've never lived in the 70s, so I don't know. But it didn't feel... It felt what I immediately imagined, but not in a good way. The summer camp thing was, like, just so loose. And, like, I feel like if you like summer camp horror films, like, you won't even like this, because it doesn't even get into being at a summer camp. It doesn't get into the vibe of summer camps. And it doesn't get into the horror of summer camps. And it's just oddly perverted. Like, the horror, it's like the gore in this film, I felt like it reached a weird perversion, because it's like the kids are like kids and they're just being like slaughtered. I don't know. It just gave me a weird vibe, like just seeing, because like a lot of the kids that die in this one are like maybe 12, 13, and they're just being like slaughtered like lambs. I don't know. It just felt weird. It feels weird. It feels perverted.
Interesting.
But
yeah, I mean, I liked the vibe that they started with in this movie, and I think it was a little bit less abhorrent than the first one. A little bit less. I was like, all right, I really liked I just don't notice it a lot, but I really like the costumes, the style, you know, the hair, the costumes, the general vibe. Um, I like that vibe for some reason. The 70s, I guess late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think whoever was in charge of that did their job, did a good job. But yeah, I mean, the main downsides was well, I mean, I didn't mind the violence. Like, that didn't really bother me. In fact, I think there was not. It almost seemed like there wasn't quite as much as the first one,
Yeah.
or at least it wasn't as entertaining as the violence in the first movie for some reason, because it's just a bunch of people getting axed, you know, and in the dark, and it's just like,
Yeah.
But yeah, and the monster, the main monster in this, I think I have a bias against one because I've never liked the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
Like, most boring horror movies I've ever seen in my life. Those, and maybe that's why this was particularly boring of the three, because just that, I don't know why, but just very, very boring to me. Just a bunch of darkness and a guy with an axe just kind of lumbering around, somehow catching, like, it's just an axe. Like, you can, I don't know, like, and it's just a guy. It's not like even that scary compared to the other monsters, because he's just lumbering around with an axe. You can dodge an axe. You can disarm him. You can, I don't know. You could probably see him coming from a mile away. I've never found that. I've never found Jason very scary. So yeah, I didn't like this one.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because, yeah, like, I don't know. And this one, he does start running fast in certain parts, but then in other parts, he's walking very slow. And yeah, I just started laughing because I just remembering, like, the old Jason movies where he's just walking so slow, and then the music is just so loud, and then like, just he's suddenly, like, beside a tree that he wasn't beside, like, he just teleports or whatever. And that's just,
he can. It's just not that interesting horror wise.
Yeah. Well, talking about the monsters, I guess we didn't really mention in part one the monsters, but I thought all the creations are just really bad in my mind. I don't know. I didn't like any of them.
I sort of liked the only thing I liked that was prominent in this movie was the just kind of satanic mass of just the bulging mass that lives underground. that is just there. Yeah, the bulge. Yeah, I liked that for some reason, because it's just funny to me. It's just like, yeah, there's this big just tumor growing underneath this town. I liked it. I mean, Stranger Things sort of had similar things. So again, it's a little derivative and quite convenient that this director happens to be married by one of the creators of Stranger Things. So yeah, I don't know, little derivative.
You know what I just realized? Why? Because I assume in the Fear Street novels, I haven't looked this up, but I assume because, like, in the Goosebumps, it's like Goosebumps and then whatever the title was relating to the horror of that, like, single story. So like, now I'm kind of confused. Why wasn't Fear Street Part 1 called, like, whatever, the Skeleton Man, and then Part 2 would be the Axe Man, and then Part 3 is the Preacher Man? I don't know.
Yeah, because they just had to go, because I feel like they wanted to do the years for the nostalgia, just to tell you up front, like, hey, this is a nostalgia movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I guess leading into that, what did you think about the 70s aesthetic in comparison to the 90s? Did you enjoy it?
Well, like I said, like, I liked it, and I liked it a little better, I think, than the 90s aesthetic. Maybe because I don't know. I think they still did the music, but it just wasn't quite as much or as annoying as the 90s. So yeah, I liked the aesthetic just in general. I think they did a good job with it.
Yeah.
And the acting, I mean, it
got worse.
Good. And well, no, I was going to say it still feels natural. I think it was just that the dialogue in this movie was worse. was way worse written and way more clunky because most of it was just exposition. It just felt like most of it was just backstories, exposition on these characters, because we're flashing back in time and seeing a totally different set of characters all of a sudden, and now we only have one movie to like cover these characters. And then the backstories were very cliche, just cliche family backstories. Dad left, mom drank, just like we were neglected, I looked out for you, my younger sister. It's just like it's just very, very cliche backstories, and not very interesting characters, not as likable as the first movie.
They seem so fake, like manufactured. Like the main, I guess, male character is like a Stephen King fan, and it's just so like,
oh yeah,
I don't even, like, I just cringe. It was like, Carrie? I don't know, just how they use Carrie as an adjectives, like, I don't know. Or a verb, I guess.
Yeah. I even was like, wait a second, did Carrie, was it that popular at that point in time in 1978? I guess the novel was popular.
Yeah.
And the movie, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, for a general review, I'll just say, big meh. The only reason you should watch this is if you really want to know what happened, some backstory to. Oh, I almost feel like you could just totally skip this one completely.
Really?
And
yeah.
Almost. Think about it. Like you could almost completely skip this one.
I think you really could, because the third one has the splices. There's moments where it splices into this one.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking.
And I mean, the lady character that they meet, I mean, she's in the third one as well. And it kind of just still makes sense. And you don't really need to know much about her backstory besides what they probably repeat in dialogue in the third one. So, yeah.
I wish more of the cast, I wish the whole cast from the first one was just implanted into the second one. That would have been, because I didn't like the main male character, the sister. I like the main girl, like, she's interesting, but I don't think her character has anything to say or do or means anything. Like, at least in the first, part one, the main squad has their own objectives and personalities. Where this one just feels like you just took whatever camp movie and then just slapped it on this, and like you said, the parents drink and whatever, mom's gone.
This is blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and what also makes it worse, and I mean, you haven't seen Stranger Things, but that the main character, the main actress in this one, is in Stranger Things, and Sadie Sink is her name, and she plays like the identical character in Stranger Things, where she's like the kind of rebellious, sort of like boyish, outcast girl who has a dysfunctional family and absent parents, and an older sibling.
Wow.
And so it's just like, I don't know, is extremely, and her character, the way she acts and everything is the same.
Wow.
So that was kind of disappointing. I was just like, well, if you've seen Stranger Things, you've basically seen this character, and you might think that you're just watching an episode of Stranger Things where she goes to summer camp.
Man, if this is Stranger Things, then I would hate that show.
I have a feeling, based on everything that you've said in the first review and this one, that you would really hate Stranger Things.
Oh my gosh.
Because I don't think you would like it.
Dude, if I had $1 for every time someone told me to watch Stranger Things, I'd probably have $100. Like,
that's that's just
all right.
Whatever. Spoilers, I guess.
Yeah. What would you rate, I guess, part 2 individually?
Oh, right. I give it a 4 out of 10. It was below average in those flawed ways of just it being boring. But it wasn't poorly done in a lot of aspects. I don't know. A lot of aspects were well done. The visuals, I don't know. The acting was fine. If you just kind of sit back and just like let your eyes cross, it makes sense. Like, it's not an annoyingly flawed movie, I would say. So 4 out of 10.
All right. Well, I would say it is an annoyingly flawed movie.
Yeah.
I feel horrible because there is not a number smaller than 1.
Oh no. Oh,
So
no.
I mean, is 0 technically a number? I don't know. It's a mystery. So I give it a 1 out of 10 because I can't.
All right. All right.
All right. So that concludes our review portion of Fear Street 1978. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now. And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it, specifically David's. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. All right. So what do we have to spoil?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, like this one, I think everything that happened in this film, with the exception of the giant tumor mass, is like literally what anyone would assume would happen.
Yeah, I just feel like it was just so unnecessary. I don't even remember, like, what did we learn from this movie besides, all right, under the camp there is a cave
Yeah.
that was built by someone
Yeah.
that has this demonic mass in it that for some reason they can't just set on fire or something. You know, that multiple characters come upon this mass and they don't think to try to attack it or destroy it in some way. They just kind of walk past it.
So what is the mass?
something.
Is it the thing, like, oh yeah, the creatures come out of the mass, right?
The creatures come out of the mass, so it's like the source of it, which at this point, you know, before the third movie, we don't really know why it's there. We don't know who or what conjured it up, but it's there. It's a demonic mass from which the creatures come. It's where all the evil gets its power in Shady Side. And that's basically all that is revealed in this movie. That's it.
This movie's
And then-
making me laugh. It's so awful.
And then, I mean, we learn that this lady that they met in the or that they called or talked to on the phone in the first movie
Oh yeah.
was this
yeah.
girl who was at this summer camp,
Yeah.
who both of them died, but then one came back to life.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that that's the reason that she didn't get possessed like the blonde girl in the first movie, was because she died and then came back to life. But then wait a second, the blonde girl from the first movie also died and came back to life and is still possessed, right? She's still acting like the Exorcist girl.
Yeah.
They have to tie her to a radiator.
Yeah.
So my question still is, why is the redhead girl not the same way?
Oh god.
Why is she not possessed?
Okay, so
What happened?
I have 2 things. One, before I forget, I want to let you know so you can remind me later. But the thing you're calling a demonic mass, I want that to be
Yes.
my 2-word review of this whole series is demonic mass.
A demonic mass. Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right.
But yeah, that makes no sense. Well, her death doesn't make sense because I don't know how she died because she got stabbed. So if she would have died, she would have bled out. So I mean,
Yeah.
CPR wouldn't have, returned any of that blood.
Exactly.
That actually makes me think, all the stab wounds in each of these characters makes no logical sense. Like, people are getting stabbed in the gut, left and
Yeah.
right, and they're just perfectly fine.
I'll talk about that probably in the third one. Yeah, it's because at the end of the first movie, that happens in the end of the first movie, right? Or is it in this movie where the main character from the first movie gets stabbed just directly in the stomach, right? And then it is basically forgotten about. Like, there's nothing comes of that. She is not injured in any way in in the future in the third movie, which is only like 30 minutes after the events of the first movie.
If you were to look at all their bellies, they would just have multiple stab wounds. Just their intestines would just be leaking.
Yeah, just no consequences at all. Yeah.
But yeah, the thing you brought up about the possessed characters, yeah, like it doesn't make sense because Sam in the first one literally got possessed within like, I don't know, like 3 days or something, and this girl's been living for, I don't know, 20 plus years, and I don't understand why she has so many alarms and stuff. Well, I guess maybe that's in the third movie. I can't even remember.
No. I think that's. Wait a second. Maybe that is in the third movie. I'm getting it all mixed up. But yeah, her character doesn't make sense how she has survived for this long. No, I think it's in the first movie when it shows her for the first time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, because the flashlight, and then he leaves the letter. It's starting.
Yeah,
again.
And so it's like, what is she? How are the monsters not after her?
Yeah, and
if she's like this paranoid, and for all those years, I thought she was doing it because, I mean, all this time. Which another thing the movie's not very clear about is like, are these monsters just roaming around all the time?
Yeah, they're just.
Or is it
chilling.
Only every 15 years or something? Yeah, what's going on?
Oh yeah, well I guess it's every generation, like every son or something. I don't know, but yeah, because each of the forebears leave a. Oh wait, shit, that's in the third movie. God damn it. I think I don't know what we should
just wrap this one up and just move on to the third movie so we could just talk about everything.
Yeah, with this one, definitely the filler episode of the series.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I felt like they could have had way more fun with this film. Like, why did?
Yes. I mean, in theory, like the setting of the summer camp.
Yeah.
And all these kids running around and a dude with an axe. It could be really fun.
This one should have just been pure, like, fatalistic. Like, it's like a, like the Romero zombie films where it's just like everyone's going to die type feeling or whatever. Like, that's what this should have been. Just people being slaughtered.
Day of the Dead kind of thing.
Yeah. And then what's weird, I don't know if this is in the third or whatever, but like, whenever it breaks back into the reality from like part one, that time period, it's this girl as an adult telling the story to them. So I was like, why didn't the filmmaker, since in the real narrative, this character's telling the story, why not just do the like voiceover approach and then just literally see everything through that character's eyes? Because this film like starts with the older sister, and then it jumps to the younger sister, and then it jumps to the cop son, and then like it felt like two different, like I think it could have been way better just as the main character's perspective versus the older sister, which like that made no sense at all to me. Why?
Well, I think it was trying to because I think it was trying to keep it ambiguous which one of the sisters was the adult version that survived. And so they were trying to make that like you got to watch until the end to see which one of the sisters it is that survived. So, but that's a stupid reason to do that. I agree that they should have just kept it from the main girl's the younger sister's perspective, and and the chaos of like someone is in camp murdering kids, like and her just running around like experiencing that. Yeah.
So you didn't feel anything weird from children being murdered?
Not really. I usually like The Quiet Place Part 2. I usually kind of admire that because so many horror movies shy away from that but I'm like, it's a horror movie. Like just like it's all, that's like I feel like that is a cliche of horror movies that they're never going to kill a kid. They're going to make it look like a kid is going to die, but it's never going to happen. So I'm just like, it's a summer camp full of kids. So
what do you expect? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So
oh gosh, are summer camps still a thing? I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went to summer camps as a kid, Christian summer camps.
Okay. Was it horrifying, or how was that experience?
It was fine, but they could definitely, you could, I think, like you mentioned earlier, that you could make a really good horror movie based on just the actual horrors of going to a summer camp as a kid.
Yeah.
And how kind of just anxiety inducing that is.
Yeah, man.
And weird it is.
Being isolated and just being around that many other children and different age ranges. Like if there's high schoolers and then you're like an elementary, middle schooler. Yeah, that's...
Or like all the people in charge are just teenagers, and yeah, like that's kind of creepy. And living in these big big houses with all the bunks, and it's just creepy. Yeah. Creepiness.
I always wanted to go to a summer camp when I was little. Never.
You didn't miss anything. You didn't miss a thing.
Oh, well, one last thing about that. This film kept reminding me, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a summer camp movie with Ben Stiller. It was like a fat camp or something. Like they made him lose weight. Oh, I forgot what it was called. You know what I'm talking about?
Heavyweights?
Yeah. For some reason, this movie just, like, it made me want to rewatch that film, but I'm pretty sure that movie is aged horribly and is probably extremely offensive. And
no, I've never seen that. I literally just Googled summer camp Ben Stiller. So yeah, heavyweights. It looks pretty bad, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, but it looks beautiful. Like I think it was like last year. My dad was watching it randomly, and I was just like walking by the TV, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's film!" And then I don't know, it was like, I think it was shot very horribly. Like it was like either like overlit or underlit, but for some reason the aesthetic of it made me like just fucking go wild. But I want to rewatch that movie. It's probably bad, but that actually brings up one thing. So like the first film, you can kind of tell they're going into like the 90s neon, like overblowing the blues and the orange and the reds, like just making those colors really pop. In this film, they go for like a super warm tone, I guess.
Yeah.
And they just like
yellowish,
they just
warm,
crank up,
desaturated kind of.
And they just crank up the grain. But I mean, you can tell this isn't on film. Like, what did you think about the whole visual aesthetic, like the actual image? I found it very lame. Like I don't.
Yeah, it was fine because I didn't notice like that they were trying to make it look like a movie from that era, sort of, or give it like a nostalgic, kind of blurry look.
Yeah,
which I thought was fine.
Do you think if you were directing these three, how far would you push the visuals of it? Like, do you think you would actually go out of your way to make each one feel like a film from that time period, or would you just do one general look?
No, I would try to. I mean, because the point is the nostalgia and everything. So and the homage to these movies that came out during this time period. So yeah, I think I would go for trying to make it look like a 70s movie, or which I don't think they did that great of a job. I mean, and the 90s, I mean, they should have done it in the 80s if they were going to go for slasher and then shoot it in that style. Then they should have just set it in the 80s and this movie in the 70s. But then what do you do for a 1666
oh my gosh
setting? If they really wanted to go all out, they would have made it black and white and made it like one of those.
It would have looked like
they made
the
a bunch
Lighthouse.
There was a lot of like in the 60s, I feel like, horror movies about witches in that time period. So they could have just emulated that, like a really black and white, grainy black and white, low budget kind of horror movie from the 60s about witches. They could have done that. But
all right, well, do you have anything else to add to this spoiler discussion of this masterwork?
Not at all.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your thoughts or comments, and if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of Fear Street. We'll see you next week. All right, we'll see you in a few minutes with part 3.
All right.